Uh, John, did you
Jason.
ruin YouTube for everybody? What's going on?
I'm afraid I may have.
What did you do?
You
I
sent
asked
me
you to
this
fix it and you
video.
broke it.
Yeah, you sent me a video during the week, and you sent me this link to this clip, and I watched the clip, and I don't know. The first time I watched it, I'm like, is Susan Wojcicki basically blaming all the new rules at YouTube on me? And we're going to take a look at why was that my takeaway after watching that video.
Well,
We're
let me
going to
just
take a
make
look.
a comment on it real quick.
Sure.
Because I saw the video. It's really interesting. My first thought was, boy, Rachel Maddow has lost a lot of weight. But then I realized that was somebody else. We can't really run this video because I have a feeling YouTube will strike it.
Yeah,
but
we're going to run that in our
who
Patreon
haven't
only.
Seen it.
Yeah,
Patreon
we'll
talk
only
about it.
Right.
Yep. What else we got cooking today?
Well, this this particular conversation, I think we can talk about it. I think it was at the Global Technology Governance Summit at the World Economic Forum.
And Klaus Schwab's stomping ground.
Exactly. And so, Susan has asked a couple of questions, and we get to our patron-only hour. We're going to go deeper into this particular aspect of the interview. But this is where effectively she confirms what we heard when we had Zach on the show back in February of 2020. Zach came on the show and said the day after the Las Vegas shooting, it was crazy at YouTube, and all these new rules came out, and it basically happened that next day, and that's what we heard from Zach. And Zach,
but wait, let's go into some depth on that, because he said that the new rules were specifically designed to suppress information from like untrusted sources. They didn't bother necessarily running down the information in the way that you've spent the last 4 years doing. They just said, well, we don't know who this guy is, so it's untrustworthy. I want to point out, John, there was a particular rotund individual who seems to hate Jewish people and says a bunch of stupid crap about you, who was right out in front of that whole YouTube Las Vegas controversy. The Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post or something had some story. I'm talking about the moron, Jake. And before we get into too much detail on him, I want to remind people, and I don't know if I told you this, John, this whole YouTube thing, it's been a problem for a while, and I've been taking a lot of steps to try to shore up the security and the future of CrowdSource the Truth. One of the things that I've done is that people can now watch our live streams on Rumble. We're live streaming on rumble.com. CS The Truth is the channel. And just to clarify for people, there's been some confusion. The live streams will play on Rumble while we are live, but Rumble does not yet save the live stream as a video on demand for playback. So that'll be coming, I think, in a week or two. They told me that that is coming, but it's not ready yet. So that's a nice resource for us.
That's great. That's good to know. Super. I'm glad you're doing that. And for those of you who are watching over at the Johnny Hoover channel, make sure you go to CrowdSource the Truth Forever, which is a special channel where Jason produces unique content that's different from CrowdSource the Truth 3 or the Jason Goodman channel. So CrowdSource the Truth Forever is where Jason logs his everlasting videos for posterity. That's very different, right?
You've been directing a lot of people over there. I appreciate you doing that. And he's being a little sarcastic at the moment. CrowdSource the Truth Forever is actually just the latest incarnation of CrowdSource the Truth, because the channels keep getting struck. And I do believe there is some outside help in terms of individuals perhaps letting YouTube know about certain things that they want struck, but people can go to CrowdSource the Truth Forever. Next week, barring any unforeseen YouTube craziness, CrowdSource the Truth 3. We'll be back. The other channels have been, removed from YouTube, so it's a bigger problem getting those back. I am working on it, But for now, a lot of people are sending me messages, John, they don't know where to find me. And of course, people can always find John Cullen Investigates on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and of course, Subscribestar and Patreon/crowdsource the truth. What are we going to be getting into today, John?
Well, the video that I have queued up with Susan is the one from the the World Economic Forum. It's not the one that Kyle Kowinski did. Kyle Kowinski put together a video commenting on this. And what I did was I went to the source. I went to the World Economic Forum and got the original source video. So this is this is just an interview with Susan. And what's interesting about it is if you take a quick peek over at the Johnny Hoover channel, about 2 weeks ago, I did a video that we talked about on the show 2 weeks ago called Rules of the Road. And I think there's a picture of a McLaren cockpit. So when you look at all my videos, you'll see a video with a McLaren cockpit. And that video gets into the real specifics of what are the rules on YouTube and what are you allowed to say and what are you not allowed to say. And we were talking about, I think you have to go to the videos tab. So you click on videos. There you go. And you're going to have to go back about 2 weeks. And it was called Rules of the Road. There it is. Just the facts. Rules of the Road. You got it.
There we go.
Mm-hmm. You can kill the audio.
Okay.
But so then the net of this video is breaking down what are the rules, right? What are you allowed to say? What are you not allowed to say? What don't they want you to say? And we talked about this on the show 2 weeks ago. So now we have this interview with Susan Wojcicki with the World Economic Forum Global Technology Summit, and they ask her some pretty interesting questions. And I think that it's actually educational for people in the audience who want to have a channel, do have channels. I've got guys who subscribe to my channel. I've got tens of thousands of subscribers already. So for those in the audience that want to know, what are the rules? What are we allowed to talk about? What does YouTube encourage? What does YouTube not encourage? I think it's okay to hear it from Susan. I think letting her talk, letting the audience hear what she has to say, I don't think we're going to get struck for that. This is educational. It's like a public service announcement.
I'm telling you, I think that they don't like us and they would potentially strike it. I think it's going to be...
So let's just listen to the question and don't let her
wait
play.
a second.
Yeah.
I think it's a safer play to go through that when we get into the sponsor exclusive segment. There's something I want to bring to your attention, though, about Kyle Kowinski. I didn't know that it was his name. I've seen him before, and I'm aware of his really very popular YouTube channel. I haven't watched it too much, but my initial impression is he seems like a smart guy with some good insights, and he's definitely got a strong channel with a lot of subscribers. The video that you're talking about, I think I sent it to you because that's where I first became aware of this Susan interview. And I mean, he was complaining that he's being suppressed by YouTube. He has almost 1 million subscribers. I mean, I guess maybe he could have 10 million, but it seemed a little bit like complaining to me. He is getting a lot of traction here on YouTube. And it's not...
Well, he's young. So he's a young guy, right? So he's part of this new generation, right? Like
how many lawsuits does he have, John? Did he talk about that?
No. And again, if we go by thickness, right? If we go by thickness and measure by, well, how many lawsuits have you been engaged in, completed? Nobody comes close to Jason Goodman.
Yes.
Right. So you're clearly the #1 channel on YouTube if we go by thickness. If we go by thickness, right?
Right.
So again, I agree. I watched this and I'm thinking to myself, dude, are you even 30 years old and you're bitching and moaning about your getting? And that's what today's show is about.
And he's certified or whatever.
All right. So what he says in his video, which we're not going to play. Again, I'm not interested in what he has to say. But what he does say is that at one point, his channel was growing at 20,000 subscribers, 30,000 subscribers per month.
Right.
Now he's growing at about 1,000 a month. Well, that's how many my channel is growing at, is 1,000 a month. Okay, so he has 1 million subscribers and is growing at 1,000 a month. I have 37,000. I'm growing at 1,000 a month.
It's faster growth for you per, if you measure by thickness.
Exactly, right. And that's how we do it here. We always measure by thickness. We don't like to use the standard rubrics because that's boring, right? If we measure differently,
I have one
we get
possibility
more
for you,
interesting
though, John.
results. What's that?
Because when I was watching him and he was saying, "Oh, I was growing at 20,000 and now it's 1,000," can't possibly be.
Mhm.
And a lot of people have commented that the Jason Goodman channel that's now defunct had been stuck at about 120,000 subscribers for a real long time. And I noticed that. I know there are a lot of people who impersonate you in the chat, impersonate me in the chat. There's a lot of people going to really extraordinary lengths to try and screw us up.
Okay.
But given that, I also look at the subscribership growth and I said to myself, well, maybe there's some sort of suppression, but maybe the appetite for a Jason Goodman YouTube show caps at 100,000 approximately. And likewise, maybe an appetite for a Kyle, whatever the guy's name is, show caps at 1 million.
That's not how it works. That's just not how it works. No. So when you see your channel just, staying at that number for so long, you were at 119,000 and not going past. And the same thing with Kyle. They're not going to let him get to 1 million. They're not going to let it happen, right? With me, they don't want me to get to 40,000.
I think you're on your way there.
Whatever. I'm still irrelevant. It's still negligible. All right. So the net of this is I'm trying to understand what the rules of the road are, right? What are the rules of engagement? What are we allowed to say? What are we allowed to talk about? What are we not allowed to talk about? If you remember when we had Dr. Judy on the show back in, I guess it was October of last year, September or October last year, we had Dr. Judy on the show. And the name I gave the presentation was, do not say the V word. Right? We're not allowed to do, and I had the buzzer all set up, right? I was like, you cannot say the V word, but you can talk about vagina all you want.
Oh,
right. We got naked, right? Because naked yoga's fine, right? Naked yoga's totally okay. So we can talk about vagina all you want, but we're not going to mention the V word. And
I'm not showing that.
Thank you.
But there's a lot of naked Yoda there.
There's a lot of naked yoga. Yeah.
Oh, wait, naked Yoda. That's a whole other topic.
I don't think I want to see that, please. Thank you.
It still brings up yoga. No one wants to see the Star Wars character naked.
Yeah, looks too much like Yoda for my taste, but thank you. All right, so what we have today, I think I sent you a couple different video clips, and I sent you a deck. So first of all, we've got a couple of the subscribers on Patreon and Subscribestar now are starting to subscribe to this evidence locker thing. I put out a promo video explaining that all the show notes that I prepare each week for our Crowdsource the Truth Friday show, I put them together in like this mega zip thing. It was too big even for WeTransfer. Wow. And people were subscribing to it, and they're now getting it. And so we've got a bunch of people who are watching who've already received this evidence locker of files, and they're saying, man, this is a lot of stuff. So
and I want to make sure everybody knows this is an exclusive for subscribers on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen or patreon.com/IamJohnCullen. So if people are subscribed to Crowdsource the Truth, this is yet another reason to also subscribe to one of John's channels.
That's great. That's great. And again, your patrons have been incredibly generous in supporting my work. I couldn't do this without them. So this, to be clear with the audience, we are not monetized. My channel's not monetized on YouTube at all. So I don't get $1 from YouTube. Everything we get is from Subscribestar and Patreon. All right. So in the deck, what I wanted to look at is basically the roadkill. Who's not paying attention? Who has not been reading the rules of the road? And let's take a look at the next slide. Before we get to that, I just want to point out I did a video just within 24 hours ago that must have slipped past the cement boot portion of whatever they usually do to me, because this one, and it's interesting because here you have a video that gets a whopping 6,000 views, and it's exciting.
Oh, wow.
Right now. All right, now we're 7,400 views. Now, the point is that this is insidious. Meaning back in November, December, January, February of 2017, 2018, my videos were getting 50,000, 60,000, 80,000
Yeah.
views. All right. If they starve you of food and oxygen long enough,
Right. One
oh,
sandwich feels like a
oh
feast.
my God. Peanut butter and jelly on Wonder Bread
Yeah.
is amazing if you've had nothing but cockroaches for 3 years, right?
Oh,
So all of a sudden you get 7,400 views, and it's like, ooh, this is exciting compared to the 1,400 views, you know. So
you're
interesting to
right.
watch it happen. Yeah,
I
it's
tell you,
interesting.
John, not that long ago, it was pretty normal for me to hit end stream on like Sunday with Charles or something, and it would be 6,800 views right away.
Absolutely. I mean, you had well over 1,000 people watching often, 1,400, 1,600 people watching frequently. And again, both of us have had videos, 50,000, 80,000 views, 100,000 views. I've had one of my videos at 250,000 views with the SUV. So this just doesn't happen anymore. And the reasons are what we're going to get into in our patron only hour. And Susan explains it. She tells you, you know, here's why. And
We
she,
just don't like you.
well, you know, and so this is where we get into the question of yikes, you know, what she's going to say and what you'll hear confirms kind of what we heard from Zach, which is the Las Vegas shooting was the watershed moment. And so the question is, was it me? Was it my videos about the Las Vegas shooting that changed everything at YouTube because they went absolutely batshit bonkers over it? I don't know. That's what we're going to look at. And we're going to dig into that. But it confirms what Zach told us back in February 2020. And the documents. Remember, he produced a whole bunch of documents. And there were a whole bunch of new search terms that were considered blacklisted. And there was like 1 million of them related to Paddock and incorrect spellings of Paddock and things like that. So, you know, very interesting how the insidious view count, you know, goes down, 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 down over the course of 3-4 years. And now all of a sudden, 6,500, 7,000 views seems like a lot. Interesting.
Well,
But she'll explain it. Yeah, Susan's going to explain it, which is great.
yeah.
So now it's not a mystery.
Yeah.
So
I mean, now we're basically feeding on the crumbs of, 2,000. I mean, basically what she says is that they've created new categories, including something like fringe content, which it does seem like they probably have categorized us as, because they may have said, well,
you think it's the outfit?
I don't know. But I think what they probably have determined is that when they run down the things that we say, they aren't false. So they can't necessarily strike you for putting out false information, but they can put you in this fringe category that we don't like.
Put us in a fringe category, hit us with strikes, so that we're on eighth-inch ice, man. You know, we're on the thinnest ice there is. They hit us with the strikes, and the fascinating thing is when you get a strike for a video that you published 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and all of a sudden that video gets struck after it's had 3,000 whoop-de-doo views. Now, I think, you and I haven't talked about this at all. There's this guy who does a podcast every day at 7 in New York time, I think, called Quite Frankly, or Frankly Speaking, or you guys in the chat will know. You guys, he also does a show with Tracy Beans.
Oh, God, why are we talking about that?
Because he does a show at 7 o'clock that a lot of people in our audience watch, and a lot of people like him.
If he's dealing with Tracy Diaz, he's either being fooled by a social engineer or he is a social engineer. And now that you mention this guy, I believe he had Mr. Chavez on there at one point, and I totally put him out of my mind at that point. But what do we want to say about him?
Just, I happened to catch one of his shows. I saw some people that I recognized in the chat room. And so I typed something in about, Shanghai still doesn't have 10 dead, right? And I'm always wary of people like this that don't acknowledge and don't engage. The somebody, Polly, what's her name? Super Duper Polly. Amazing Polly, Super Duper, right? Super Duper Polly. Amazing Polly, the Tracy Beans. And it's like this lack of acknowledgement and a lack of a willingness to work together compared to, like, for example, the guys in UK Column. Once they got wind that we were all kind of chasing down the same thing in the same manner, they were eager to get together with us and do a show together and compare notes. To me, that's kind of like normal. That's normal behavior.
I agree, but to be fair, we can't just judge somebody for making the decision to not appear on the show. There's a lot of reasons why somebody.
I agree with you. But I'm not. That's not my rubric. I'm not measuring by that. I'm measuring by they won't even acknowledge a comment. They won't acknowledge the chat. They won't acknowledge the work. They don't have to come on the show, right? But for example, to not even say, to not acknowledge that they're aware of this work at all, to me is suspicious.
I agree, it's suspicious. And that I agree with, because what basically happens with a person like that, who I say, well, gee, they're covering a lot of the topics that we cover. They seem to have a lot of the same insights that we have. Seems like it could be somebody that we could talk to, cross-pollinate the audience. Seems like it would help everybody. And there have been a number of people who have, my initial response was, this is a little strange. And then as you try to approach that person a little bit more, I mean, people heard my conversation with Mike Lindell. People saw my interaction with Patrick Byrne, who incidentally also was on Tracy Bean's show. And actually, when Patrick Byrne appeared on Tracy Bean's show, I became very suspicious of him, because he obviously knew her, referred to her by her first name in a way that caused me to feel like they were familiar. And I just sent a message saying, listen, I want to tell you what I know about this person so you can make up your own mind, present this information, and then by the end of my presenting it, you can either decide if Jason is being unreasonable or if Jason has a point. I don't tell anybody, don't talk to this person, don't talk to that person. I just like to tell them, here's what I know, and you form your own opinion. But see, in the case of Patrick Byrne, and let's talk about him, because that's, he's a big rich guy who's, hanging out with Donald Trump and Warren Buffett and all this. He's in the Council on Foreign Relations. He said Warren Buffett is his rabbi. Warren Buffett is like best friends with Bill Gates, who's trying to block the sun and force everybody to take this vaccine. I don't know why anybody trusts Patrick Byrne. Actually, I do. He's got a lot of charisma, seems like a nice guy. He smiles, you talk to him, you feel like, hey, this is somebody I could talk to. But when I asked him if he was aware of my conversation with Mike Lindell about Hammer, Scorecard, Mary Fanning, Dennis Montgomery, to me, a normal reaction would be something like, I'm not really familiar with that. I'd love to answer a question I can answer. Not freaking out, telling his open carry armed security to throw me out of the place and then coming back and grabbing my expensive equipment. And when I ask him to let go of it, struggling with me, making me fear for my safety by having 2 armed guards get in my face and kick me out. Something is very wrong with Patrick Byrne, and I suspect he's lying about something, and I think he knows that I know that, and he gets annoyed when I talk to him about it, because I'm kind of blowing his cover, and it's the same thing that I suspect of Tracy Beans, and quite frankly, and all of these people that you're describing who seem like they should be interested in collaborating with us. These are Jakes in the waiting. Perhaps Jake is a little bit more
I'm amazed at how many there are is kind of the point. And I just can't believe that these people are so egocentric that they're afraid to share the limelight. For example, I know that, you're not doing a show with him right now at the moment. You guys had a little bit of a falling out. But when Ole found out that you and I did
he just moved to Bali.
Oh, okay. So he's in Bali. So I hope he doesn't fall in the volcanoes, by the way. There's a lot of volcanoes.
Well, and he's also doing shows with Robert David Steele.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Sarah Westall.
What I mean.
Why is he doing that?
But when he found out that you and I did a show together and he saw my stuff, he was eager to get on the show and talk about it. And
he didn't know that we did a show together. He heard about you from somebody else.
Right. And once he found out that we could connect and do a show together, he was eager to do it. That's kind of the point. The same with Dr. Scott Jensen, the same with Cyril Wecht, the same with Dr. Judy. everybody was trying to figure this thing out. Nobody really understood what was happening, the dynamics, and a whole bunch of people from different walks of life were trying to pull together and pitch in and see what we could figure out. I felt I had some data that was rather significant. And as kind of the team lead, and as the team lead on the mapping system that Johns Hopkins was using, I felt like even with the hat and glasses, I should have a little bit of credibility. I mean, the map does say that there aren't 10 people dead in Shanghai, right? So that is a fact check, right? I mean,
yep.
And you don't have to be a programmer to figure this out, to click on Shanghai. You just have to be able to see it on the screen, right? If you can see Shanghai, it's tiny. The little dot in Shanghai is so small because there aren't 10 people dead there. And
the map is not. There we go.
There you go. You got over to China. So based on this, again, how is this? I guess what it comes down to, Jason, is we talk about the fourth estate, the fifth estate, right? And supposedly the Tracy Beanses and the Quite Franklys and the Amazing Pollys and, all this quote unquote alternate media is supposed to be keeping tabs on the mainstream media, right? And so the stuff that the mainstream media is not telling you is what all these folks are supposed to be telling you. And what I don't understand is this major rift between people like Dr. Cyril Wecht, Dr. Scott Jensen, Dr. Roger Schwelt, that come on our shows to try and figure stuff out and present data and look at the data, see if we can figure something out here. And then there's these people that don't seem to want to engage for some reason. Why would that be if we had meaningful evidence?
Well, I think there's some people who, as you said, maybe don't want to share. I'll give you an example. When I was in Los Angeles, I contacted that guy, German in Venice. And he just said straight out, first of all, people are frequently how did you get this number? It's like, listen, that's the Colonel's secret recipe, but you want to do a show in Venice Beach? And he was like, no, I don't want to collaborate with anybody. And I got the sense that, he seems like a legitimate guy. He didn't know me. He's not part of some social engineering crew that's trying to destroy CrowdSource the truth. I think he's just experiencing a lot of growth on the YouTube channel, and he felt I was trying to take something from him. Now, it is true that he had about 150 or 160. At the time, my 120,000 channel was going. And I always feel like approaching somebody with that, like there's a lot of people watching us right now who probably haven't seen German in Venice, and I'll plug him even though he wasn't that friendly on the phone. It's a good channel. He's going around Los Angeles. He's covering the homeless problem. And I guess he might have felt like I was kind of cutting in on his territory or something. So there's a lot of reasons that a lot of people do this. But when we're talking about people who I've known about for 4 years or 5 years, and who the first thing they had to say about me was that I was a Mossad agent, or interviewing people who said that, or being friends with people who said that. I mean, if somebody came and told me that you were whatever I know you're not, I would challenge that person, and I'm open to hearing evidence in support of virtually any claim. But the more outlandish the claim, the stronger the evidence better be, and the quicker you better get to it, or I'm going to lose my patience fast.
I agree. All right, why don't we hop over to the deck and let's show the audience some of the some of the things we got here. So this video got a bunch of new views. This is a fun one to watch, and if you go back and watch the one from 2 weeks ago about the rules of the road, that's also a fun one. But yeah, let's take a look here. So what I did here for this show was I went to Breitbart, and I wanted to see Breitbart's coverage of certain topics, and everything you're about to see came from Breitbart. Now, Breitbart is owned by the
Mercers?
The Mercer family, right? So this is the same folks that were behind the whole Parler thing and all that. Yeah.
Did you notice that Parler has been down for 2 days? I mean, I want these alternative platforms to succeed, but Parler has been bad from the moment they came out with it. The interface is bad. The look is bad. It's unreliable. I couldn't log into it for months. I'm disgusted with Parler.
That's how I feel about BitChute. BitChute doesn't work for me. All right. So what I found here, this is looking into. Let's go to the next slide and show you guys sort of where we're headed here. All right. So a lot of this has to do with the censorship, right? And what we're looking at are different rules, and the rules are changing at places like Facebook and Twitter. And I want people to sort of understand the depth and breadth of this. It's a term I use a lot, depth and breadth, right? So just how deep is this and how widespread is it? And that's what we're going to take a look at. So let's go to the next slide.
Ronnie boy.
All right. So Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, has a meeting with the doctor from Stanford University, Scott Atlas, that used to be part of the White House team, and some other doctors to talk about whatever, and that is shut off. Okay, so he's roadkill. So he and his team are not paying attention to the rules of the road, and they're not watching the videos of Susan explaining what's okay and what's not okay. And that's why we're going to do this in our patron-only hour, so that people understand clearly what we're allowed to and what we're not supposed to be talking about when we're on YouTube. But Ron DeSantis, I think it's safe to say he screwed the pooch, and they blew it.
What do you
got
mean?
He got shut down because he was doing a roundtable.
Oh, well, right, on YouTube. But I thought you meant about this bill. He's been getting consultation from Laura Loomer on this bill.
All right, so here's the story. I'm thinking that everybody we know is going to have to move to Florida.
Exactly.
Or every governor in the country who understands what's at stake here is going to have to follow DeSantis's lead. It's going to have to be one or the other. Because imagine if you were to establish residency in Florida, everything of yours that's ever been shut down has to come back.
What are you talking about? Does this thing work retroactively? We got to go read that statute. You better be careful. I don't think they generally work retroactively.
Let's tell Laura to make sure that's in there. Tell Laura to tell DeSantis, get the retroactive status A into the ill bay, right? Let's get the retroactive ray into the ill bay Umerlay. Okay, that's code. We're speaking code.
The bill's already out. What Laura did was they increased the fine from $100,000 to $250,000. But Larry told me this bill has no teeth and it's not going to do anything. And sometimes Larry is cynical, but almost always Larry is right.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I think it's the gist of the bill. It's the gist of it. It's the fact that DeSantis is putting his foot down.
Yeah.
And saying, you're not going to do this to the citizens of my state. You're not going to censor what they have to say as long as it's within reason. I mean, again, nobody's talking here about, dismembering kittens. That's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about adults having adult conversations about, important topics. And, I think that...
Sorry, John. It always sounds like I'm interrupting you because I'm aware of this delay from the VPN.
That's fine.
Ron DeSantis was on, I guess, Fox, or I saw him somewhere on a live thing the other day, and he looks like he's getting more fit. I think he's definitely getting ready to run for president in 2024. Not that he's out of shape, but he looks like he's got kind of like an image consultant going. He seems to be working out, getting fit, getting ready to run for president, which I would vote for Ron DeSantis. I think I would vote for Ron DeSantis over Donald Trump.
Interesting. Okay. We're going to have to see what these tickets look like.
I'm just not into rehiring somebody who screwed up the job the first time I had him on.
I hear you. Well,
and sometimes it's like, you know what? I understand the circumstances. It's not your fault. The helicopter didn't fly. The Steadicam arm didn't work. Whatever. It didn't work out. We're going with somebody else.
And again, there's a bunch of disappointments that we've talked about. We talked about, who did get a pardon and who didn't get a pardon, right? And Julian is still in prison, and Snowden can't come back to the United States supposedly. and they still want to throw these guys in jail. I mean, you see what they, I was watching you and Larry talking about what happened with Giuliani. I was watching your show. It was awesome. And, if the FBI is going to show up at Rudy Giuliani's house at 6 o'clock in the morning with 7 agents, and the FBI is going to show up at some resort in Alaska at 6 o'clock in the morning with 7 agents with the guns drawn and handcuff the people looking for Nancy's laptop. All right. We heard they did it to Dr. Judy. They stormed into Dr. Judy's house, right, and took her out of there. So if they'll go into the president of the United States' lawyer's home and take his
iCloud.
Well, they did that ahead of time. Yeah, that's
ridiculous.
So egregious. That's egregious. I mean, that's unbelievable. But the fact that they then go to the guy's home at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 agents, and they take all his stuff. Imagine if they took all your laptops, all your hard drives.
Yeah.
Imagine if they took all mine and had everything I ever did.
Well, they're not going to find anything. It's not on mine, at least.
It's not a question of anything criminal, but it's a question of now you don't have any of your stuff anymore. You've got 5 years of content and you don't have it.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, how do you do any of your work? They took his phone, they took his computer. It's like, what do? You got to buy a new one, but that stuff's expensive.
The body of work, your body of work, the 5 years of videos that you've been making and publishing and everything you've done has a tremendous value that I don't think you yet appreciate.
Oh, I do. I'm preserving it all.
Okay. Well, now if the FBI comes and says, no, we're taking it all. No, this is ours now, bitch. And they put you in handcuffs because there's 17 of them and there's one of you.
Right.
And that's how they do it. It's overwhelming force, as opposed to, I told you this, in Thailand, I told you what happens. They call you up and they say, you better be down here in an hour or we're going to send 17 guys to your house.
Well, I think that's generally what they do with a lawyer. I mean, particularly, and I'm not trying to suggest that anybody deserves different treatment than anybody else, but if you're a drug dealer or somebody with a violent history or somebody that they know is running from the police, I believe that warrants a different approach than someone who was a U.S. attorney, the mayor of New York, the lawyer for the president of the United States, and has been trying to get information to the FBI for 2 years. Clearly, they could have called him and said, Mr. Giuliani, we would like to come over and meet with you. We're conducting an investigation into X, Y, and Z. We want to see all this stuff. My feeling is, because I was discussing this with a friend who's a lawyer earlier today, and she disagreed with me, but I don't think they're interested in Rudy Giuliani at all. They want to see what evidence he has against Joe Biden, take it out of circulation by saying, oh no, this can't be used in any civil or criminal case because this is national security. We now seize it. You are under order not to speak about it and blah, blah, blah. And they want to put a felony on Trump so that he can't run in 2024. Right. I really don't think they care about Rudy Giuliani. They can neutralize him with a couple of unflattering photographs of his hair dye running down his neck.
Well, again, the breakdown that you and Larry did was fantastic, right? And, again, Larry explains why was there a search warrant versus a subpoena? And Larry explains that. And, for the audience, if you haven't watched that show, go to CrowdSource, The Truth Forever, and watch that because it was great. I think it was just yesterday, right? It was just yesterday?
Thursday is Larry's new show. The Citizens Grand Jury is a series now. So every week he's going into
this was great. This was great. So I highly recommend you guys watch this and, listen to what Larry's explaining here because it's this is at the heart of the matter. And at some point, I think the population is starting to cock its head and say, well, wait a second. Is this tyranny?
Yeah.
Because if this isn't tyranny, what would tyranny look like? I mean, because as far as the actions are concerned, the actions sure to me appear like tyranny. I don't know if they're in the right outfits. We might need central costuming. But as far as the actions, If this isn't tyranny, what is? When the president of the United States' lawyer is served a search warrant as opposed to a subpoena.
Well, how about when his stuff gets searched without a warrant, like in the case of iCloud?
Right, exactly.
I guess.
Exactly. I mean, so this is why, I've joked about it in the past. And I know you can never give up your iPhones because you couldn't function. But
Well, if the FBI came here with 17 guys with guns, they'd take whatever they want. If they could send one FBI agent here and they'd get whatever they want. But
yeah,
it would screw you up.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to our deck. We've got just a couple more minutes before we have to go to our patron-only hour. And in a couple of those videos I sent you, I don't know if we can run one or two of those clips. What do we have in the clip stash that I sent
really
you?
prefer to run clips.
Not to run the clips
because
patron only.
Someone's going to, email YouTube and it's, yeah.
Okay. All right. So go back to the deck here. It looks like you're on the last slide of the deck. Looks like we just skipped every single slide in the deck. Is that the last slide?
We had Ron DeSantis.
Okay.
And now we have this guy.
And then what else?
Google-owned YouTube blacklists British COVID lockdown skeptic.
Dave Rubin, big tech censorship. 2021. Yes. All right. So from the Rubin report, in an interview with Alex Marlow, the editor-in-chief, and what he said, this was at Turning Point Student Action Summit, West Palm Beach. And he says 2021 is going to be the year of, he said this back in December, the year of
bannings.
Banning, and lo and behold, here we are. So let's keep going. Joe Biden on the next slide. Masks have needlessly divided this country.
Yes, and it's mostly his fault.
All right, well, I did send you a video of Dr. Fauci on 60 Minutes explaining who needs to wear masks. And now, I don't know, are we allowed to play a 60 Minutes clip of Dr. Fauci, or we're not allowed to do that?
CBS is particularly bad.
Oh, that's right. You're right. We're not allowed to show this. But this is Dr. Fauci on 60 Minutes. And they
very dramatic lighting.
Fabulous. Great lighting. Really nicely done. They got some snoots or snouts or whatever they're called.
This is probably just, portable, soft, panel lights from LED. But who knows? But they're
looks great.
Fauci.
So Fauci here, this is, one of his opinions about mask wearing. He's had a few. Let's go back to our deck and we'll see what else we have. Yeah, we're going to look at these videos when we go to our patron-only hour. We're going to play these. Back to the deck. Cheryl Atkinson. And I'm a big fan of hers. I think she's done some great stuff. And she did great research on the original swine flu outbreak in 2009. And she was on to the fact that something was up. I'd love to get her on the show. So
she's one of the smartest people I've ever met.
Love to get her on the show. She would fall out of her chair if she saw what we had.
She's really busy, though. Hard to get her on the show.
I'm busy, too. So, and the difference is I know things she doesn't know, right? I have data she doesn't have. So,
she's busy.
Well, she's too busy to know the truth.
She's also now part of John Solomon's Just the News, so...
So what? She's busier. Is she busier than Laura Ingraham? She must be, I guess.
I don't know.
I'll tell Laura. I'll tell Laura that Cheryl's busier than she is.
Well, I think what it is that Cheryl's not working for Fox, so she might have a smaller staff, meaning she may have to do more of her own stuff. And somebody like Laura Ingraham, I feel like, has a million people around her helping her make that show.
Okay. Well, your staff is incredibly small. I've met them.
Hey, let's not get personal.
I've met them. All right, YouTube censors coronavirus roundtable. So this was the original story for DeSantis, right? So this was the roundtable story where he had Dr. Scott Atlas and a couple other doctors, and they shut him down. And the reason is, you go to the rules of the road video, you're going to find out exactly why that happened. Right? So it's not a mystery.
This Susan really annoys me.
No, I think she's great. And when we get to our patron-only hour, we're going to get to really go into the things that she says.
This is the funniest thing. The Free Expression Award. given
Yes.
to her, sponsored by YouTube. And this was a nonprofit. I looked at it for about 4 seconds, and I remember thinking, Charles is too busy to get onto another topic. But we got Freedom Forum Institute. I looked at that for a moment. I mean,
It's great. Free expression. Yeah. And
yeah.
I'm sure she's very proud. I'm sure she's very proud. So let's go to the next slide. We got more. There's more. YouTube escalates the censorship of election misinformation. All right, so it's the point here is that there's been sort of a track record of this stuff. Now, what is the date on that story? January 7th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's sort of this track record of, based on what stories are in the news, you're going to see a different set of rules come along, right?
Right.
So we've had stories about Las Vegas. We've had stories about elections. We've had stories about viruses. We've had stories about therapeutic treatments for viruses. And every time there's a new angle, and
There's a new rule.
But isn't it kind of weird that with the Section 2, what is it, 203, Section 203 protection? Wouldn't you think they would just say, this is ridiculous, this is just too hard, and we're protected? You know, no mutilating kids or pets, right? None of this and none of that. You know, basic rules.
Well, you know, when we look at a platform like Subscribestar, I believe their policy, their written policy, I believe, is that you're not allowed to do anything illegal on the platform. And short of that, it's generally open. So you can't threaten people, you can't harass people, you can't depict murder, rape, and any kind of crime.
Mm-hmm.
But to the extent that
Seems
you want to
reasonable.
share your opinion about a topic or your opinion of what is factual about it, you're allowed.
Obviously, we've been able to keep it within the lines, both at Patreon and Subscribestar, because we're respectful. We present the evidence in a manner, and we're not that declarative. You know, I think a lot of people are like, this is this, or this doesn't exist, or this is doing this. I don't make a lot of declarations because I don't feel like I have all the evidence.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get the evidence on the table, and I'm not even, you know, because we do inductive reasoning, we're never really fully all the way there until we have these guys in a courtroom and we get some admissions of guilt.
I was going to say the time that I've spent in a courtroom or even reading over legal briefs has really sensitized me to how I present what I say. This is why I had that conversation with Jimmy Moriarty about proof versus evidence. I like to speak very carefully because when you come down to someone transcribing what you've said and say, this right here is what we're going to sue you for, you want to make sure you're careful and confident in what you say and just don't throw out words haphazardly.
Right. That's why I'm really not interested in anything other than the root cause of what's been killing people. That's it. Right. And so when people want to talk to me about other aspects of the story, to me, those are distractions. Right. And to some people, that looks like obsessive compulsive disorder. Right. That I don't want to talk about that. Right. I only want to focus on this. But that's what I am good at. And that's what I know. And it has served me well in that the breaks in the data that we've been able to report on this story, for example, more men dying than women, that the ratio of race and the distribution of deaths by race matches the population distribution almost exactly. I mean, these aspects of the story, this is data-based. And when we talk about Taiwan and we talk about Japan, and we talk about the fact that Ohio has more people dead than Japan, and when we compare Canada to California, Japan's great. Japan has fewer people dead.
Ohio's not bad either, I have to say. Ohio's not bad.
You need to spend more time in Cleveland then.
Well,
the more time
nice
you
parts.
Well, actually, the more time you spend in Columbus, I think the more your opinion might change. But it gets cold there, man. It is cold and nasty.
I mean, I'm not saying it's great or anything, but it's closer than Japan.
Yeah. Jenny's ice cream is the best thing in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, is Jenny's ice cream? That's the $1 million ice cream that what's her name had in the freezer, Nancy Pelosi.
I don't know. No, Jenny's ice cream is phenomenal. I mean, easily the best thing about Columbus, Ohio.
I meant to actually mention before when you were talking about that raid to get Nancy Pelosi's laptop, it caused me to wonder for a minute, will we see photographs of Nancy Pelosi doing lots of nude selfies and smoking crack on that laptop? Because that would be funny to see.
Well, I think that's what they're petrified of, whatever the heck is on that laptop getting into somebody's hands and
it's too late. It's been out there for months. I mean, I think it's just the idea that you can't break into the Capitol and steal the Speaker of the House's laptop. I mean, that's obviously
no, I get it.
Not.
But if the FBI shows up at the wrong place, at the wrong house, in other words, it could have been anyone in the audience. The FBI could have shown up at your house and said, "We have you on video at the Capitol. We know you have Nancy's laptop. Where is it? We're putting you in handcuffs." That's 5 o'clock in the morning.
Hey, you know that group that's suing me over a show that we did that if I mention them, this is something else I'm going to have to collect and send to them?
Yeah.
They want all details of everything I was doing on January 6th, which I've responded, of course, you can see it on that video. It's all there. It's amazing how people try to see. This is what I'm getting at, John. There's people who deal straight and say like, hey, you did this. Here's the remedy. And then there's underhanded scumbags who lie, who cheat, who just do whatever.
And are they professionals? And are they professionals? Are they being paid to do this? And I think the answer is yes. Because I don't know any adults in my life, and I'm pretty old now, that do these things.
Right.
I mean, there's an episode of South Park. We'll wrap it up on this. There's an episode of South Park that many of you may be familiar with, where one of the key characters is Dildo Schwaggins, and Randy Marsh gets into. Is it Randy? No, it's not Randy. It's Kyle's dad. Kyle's dad gets into becoming an online. What do they call these guys? These goofballs that type the lousy stuff. Troll, yeah. So he gets into trolling. And if you see if you got a little clip on South Park, you were allowed to play the 1 minute clips.
No,
we're not allowed to play that. All right. There's a thing called Dildo Schwaggins, and Dildo Schwaggins is one of the members of this troll team, and they decide they're going to troll an entire country, and I think they trolled Denmark or something. And it's really kind of interesting because what the kids' perspective is on the trolling and why they're trolling. And again, South Park has there you go, Dildo Schwaggins. And South Park has a way of really hitting the core issues in these cartoons. And it sort of makes you wonder, who are these people that are doing this to you now for coming up on 4.5, 5 years?
It's amazing.
I mean, you came to visit me in Thailand. In fact, it's over 2 years now. So 2 years ago, you left Thailand.
I've been trying to find time to finish the post on that video.
Whatever. You got to fix your car first. But the net of it is, even then, you were engaged in the lawsuit crap. You're like, dude, I need 2-3 weeks to finish up this aspect of this legal thing, and that was 2 years ago. You've been engaged in this for so long.
Well, that lawsuit has been dismissed. This is now, there's 3 other lawsuits. But it's all, in my opinion, coming from the same source.
Right. They figured out you were going to be a problem early. They didn't think I was going to be that big a problem because I was a one-trick pony.
No. I think they did think that you were a problem, and their solution was Jake. But he's incompetent, ineffective, and basically impotent. So he now, I think, does videos about like Godzilla or something.
Yeah.
And
if you have the ability to suppress borderline content, well, that's just as effective. Jake. Right. Yeah. You don't. Right. So that's just as effective as.
Okay, I do need to stop you here, John, because we got to do the transition over to subscribestar.com and patreon.com/IamJohnCullen. People can see the simulcast, as always, on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We super appreciate all the sponsors that make this show possible. We could not do this without you. And the truth is, John, all of the co-hosts have been feeling the pinch. when they crush CrowdSource the Truth or Jason Goodman or the channel that, gets us into the algorithm to the extent that we're allowed, it has an effect on the bottom line. So if people can share this video, email it to friends, email it to family members, social media, however you like to do it, we appreciate that so much. Hit the thumbs up, like it, share it, tweet it, do whatever you're going to do. We'll see everybody in just about